Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me again on another session of Handy Law. I'm Sylvia Idowu. Today we'll be discussing trust, private trust, and with me to discuss that is Adeola Adeyanju, legal advisor, Stanbic IBTC, Lagos, Nigeria. Viola, I'm so thrilled that you could join me on this set.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you for having me on your show.
So I know you've set up a lot of private trusts, and I would just want you to kick us off by explaining to us what a trust is and the different types.
Okay, thank you. A trust, first of all, let me define the concept of a trust.
Okay.
A trust is defined according to the Black's Law Dictionary as having an equitable or beneficial interest in a certain property which has been entrusted to another party who has legal ownership. So basically, what it just means is we have three major players when you talk about a trust. You have a settlor or a grantor, who is the person who is seeking to set up a trust, and he would entrust certain assets, whether real property or cash, in favor of a trustee who becomes the legal owner of such assets. They hold that property in trust for a third party who is seen or regarded as a beneficiary. So the trustee holds on to property on behalf of a settlor and will carry out the wishes of a settlor for the benefits of the beneficiary. I don't know if you get my explanation.
Yes, I do get that. I also understand that a trust can be living, could be a living trust or a testamentary trust. Can you explain this a bit more?
Yes, yes, I can. Now, one thing we should first of all understand is that a trust is established. It's also an alternative, an option when one is considering his or her estate, planning his or her estate. Now, most people are quite aware of what a will is and the mechanisms around setting up of a will. A trust is an alternative to that, and like you said earlier, you have a living trust, you have a testamentary trust. They're different. You can set up a trust for different reasons. A living trust is also known as an intervival trust. It's a trust that is set up during the lifetime of a settlor.
Okay.
Such a trust can also be considered as a revocable trust because during the lifetime of that settlor, the settlor could also decide to revoke the trust, to cancel. A revocation is like a cancellation, to cancel that trust during his or her lifetime. A trust can also be irrevocable, such that for the period while that a settlor is alive, it is revocable. But once a settlor is deceased, that trust can be reconstituted into an irrevocable trust, and the trustee will be required to continue running the trust in line with the wishes of the settlor. A testamentary trust commences at a point where at the point when a settlor is deceased. Now, a settlor, by way of his will, sets up that trust that upon his demise, a trust will be constituted in favor of the beneficiary. So it is set up based on the testament that the settlor has given in his or her will. So that's how both trusts can we can define both trusts. You mentioned earlier that there are private trusts, and yes, a private trust is basically a trust that involves the personal assets of an
Okay.
individual,
Okay.
and we can discuss that as we go along.
Okay. Okay. And there is this notion that you need to have tons of money before you can create or set up a trust. Is that true?
No. The shortest answer I can give you is no. So every trustee, my organization, we have a corporate trust business, and it depends on what kind of trust you want to set up. A trust, you can create a testamentary trust, through your will. You can also create a private trust by executing a trust deed with your corporate trustee. By so doing, the assets you bring into that trust is what the trustee will manage. Well, all I would just mention is that most times it's encouraged that the assets are more of investments or cash rather than just real estate property, such that the trustee is able to carry out the instructions of the settlor upon his demise.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you very much for that. So, how can you go about setting up a valid trust? I understand you may need to register with CAMA and Corporate Affairs Commission, or what is the provision of the law in setting up a valid trust?
Okay, so when we're talking about a private trust, speaking from my experience as a legal advisor to a corporate trustee, you do not have to set up a trust under the party of CAMA.
Okay.
Now, a corporate trustee is licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission
Okay.
and is seen as a capital market operator. They are licensed to carry out the functions of a trustee as we know it, the fiduciary duties of a trustee. They can carry out all that needs to be done as a trustee without having to register with CAMA. The way the process works is this: you approach a corporate trustee to set up a trust, the settlor provides a letter of wishes. The letter of wishes would state clearly what that trust is for. Before I digress into that, let me quickly just say this. What makes a valid trust? There are three major elements
Okay.
at law. The first is that there's a certainty of words, a certainty of subject matter, a certainty of an object. Now, all this means is that the settlor has to give clear, unequivocal instructions to a trustee stating how the asset is put in this trust will be administered. It has to be clear, it has to be unequivocal, there must be no ambiguity. Then the trustee is going to hold on to specific assets. Now, the other element, which is the certainty of subject matter, has to do with defining clearly the assets that will be transferred to the trust and which will be held, by the trustee. The asset has to be clearly defined and then transferred. That transfer is what passes the legal ownership from the settlor to the trustee. Then the certainty of object means that the beneficiaries must be well defined
Okay.
and clear as well. So for a trust to be valid, those three elements must be clear.
Okay.
And in being clear, it will be translated from the letter of wishes that is provided by the settlor into a trust deed. The trust deed is what clearly defines the fiduciary relationship between a trustee
Okay.
and the settlor.
Settler. Okay. Okay.
And with that, the trustee can act for and on behalf of that trust in the interest of the beneficiary.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, my question is, can a trust be set up to run in perpetuity, or it must have a determinable date of termination?
Okay. No, it can't be run in perpetuity. There is a rule against perpetuities for a trust. Unlike the will, where once a probate is given, it continues to run its course until it's done. But for a trust, there has to be it's a cutoff. And for us, from my experience, we've always put it at probably 80 years. That's where it becomes irrevocable. When it's revocable, the settlor can define the number of years he wants that trust to run during his lifetime. But when it becomes irrevocable, then it would only run for at least a period of 80 years, after which, that is, or for 80 years, or for as long as the wishes of the of the settler has been accomplished. So it's either whichever is earlier. So you could say it's for 80 years, or for as long as the trustee is able to complete their instructions. So if
Okay.
and as long as the asset continues to exist, once it depletes, the trust winds down.
Oh, thank you very much. So what makes a trust an attractive method of estate settlement?
Okay, so from a corporate trust perspective,
Yeah.
when you appoint a corporate trustee as your trustee, you get the benefit of vast experience, vast knowledge. You have, as a settler, you have peace of mind because you have an organization that would be, around for a while, as against, entrusting into an individual trustee who, of course, may uh, we human beings have, an expiry date, so to speak. We just never know when. But for a company, that you have an assurance that that company can continue to run the trusts, and your assets are also protected because the company has a reputation to keep, and is also regulated by, I mentioned earlier that it's seen as a capital market operator regulated by SEC. So they do not have the luxury of mismanaging the assets under management. They have to ensure that the assets are well managed. Then also there is objectivity in administration of the trust. Objectivity in terms of the corporate trustee does not know anybody and would be impartial,
Okay.
would ensure that the trust objectives are followed through from beginning to end, and whatever, discretion is applied would only be in favor of all the beneficiaries. So that's a few of the advantages that I think, should attract, anyone who is thinking of doing a trust at the moment.
Okay, that's for a corporate trustee. All right, so what are the duties of a trustee? What should the
Yeah. So
beneficiaries
I
expect
mentioned
from?
earlier. Okay. So like I mentioned earlier that a trust relationship is seen as a fiduciary relationship, which means that at common law, a trust is required to exercise duty of care, a duty of care that ensures that everything that you do in a manner that you are not seen to be compromising the asset. There are a few of the duties which at common law a trustee is supposed to observe. Includes duty to adhere to the terms of the trust deed. As I said earlier, there is no room for deviation. A trustee must follow the trust deed, which is the governing document for a trust, must follow the terms of the trust deed to the letter. We do not have the luxury of going outside of the trust, because once you do that, a trustee will be held to be in breach. A trustee must be seen to be loyal to the settlor, loyal to the beneficiaries, ensuring that the trust is administered solely for the interests of the beneficiaries of that trust, and they cannot be seen to be having conflicts of interest. any matter that might seem that might show as though a trustee might have conflict, a trustee must disclose to the beneficiary and find a way to resolve as quickly as possible. A trustee also has the duty to manage the trust efficiently. Like I said, there is they have to follow the terms. They must be familiar with the terms of the trust. They
Yes.
must also be familiar with the assets
Okay.
which they hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
The investment must be carried out consensuously. They must ensure that there is returns, the earn returns. If they invest it, there must be considerable returns. That they must invest in only in instruments that would ensure that the capital of that trust is, protected, and whatever returns are realized are also used only for the benefit of the trust. That also has to do with the duty to invest, because what the law that applies to trustee here in Nigeria is the Trustee Investment Act, and the Trustee Investment Act, places an obligation on the trustee to invest in it sets a guideline as to how assets, whether you're talking about investment, how those assets should be invested in line with the act. A trustee also has a duty to account. So it's not saying that a trustee is just carrying on without being accountable. They have to account. They account to the settlor while the settlor is alive. They account to the beneficiaries upon the demise of the settlor. Then a trustee also has a duty to distribute the assets in line with the terms of the trust. There are set rules. There could be depending. Every trust cannot be the same because every settlor has their own set of instructions. So they must ensure that they distribute in line with the instructions gotten from the settlor. So that's just a few.
Wow, a lot of work, but it can't be all work and no pay. So, how is a trustee remunerated?
It is a lot of work. It is a lot of work for the trustee. So but basically a trustee, of course, like I said, a corporate trustee is a business, and so it's not a pro bono service. It's a business, and from the onset, when the settlor is coming on board, they do sign off there are fees there, depending on how the negotiation goes. We have what we call setup fees. We also have the trustee may also earn management fee based on the investments, returns on investments. So that makes the trustee work harder for the trust when they know that their fees are coming in from the returns they get from investment. So it means they have some skin in the game, and they have to ensure that that trust is doing well for them to get their fees. So it depends. There are a lot of parameters that they look at, but then it's based on negotiation with the settlor. And then the fees usually come either from the settlor or from the trust asset. So it all depends on the negotiation, and all of that is well noted in the trust deed.
Okay, just as an add-on, I want to know, recently we all experiencing escalation in prices of fees. Agreements have had to be reviewed to capture the recent economic realities in Nigeria. So in a situation as we have it today, would a trustee review his fees, especially if the settlor has passed on, or is he tied to the original fees agreed with the settlor?
Well, there's usually in the trust deed, there are clauses that says subject to review.
Oh, okay.
And most times it's better, of course, to negotiate with the settlor. But so it's better when the settlor is alive, you negotiate. But then when the settlor has passed on, but the trust is still under the management of the trustee, the issue of fees can be discussed with the beneficiaries, provided that the beneficiaries have attained the age of majority. So it's either you talk to the beneficiary where they are adults, or you speak with their guardians where they are minors. So it really depends on who the beneficiaries are before you can have that conversation. And in most cases, like I said, it's a when you have a people business such as a trust, you also have to deal with the human face, such that you are not trying to break the back of the
Okay.
trust and disenfranchising the beneficiary. So all of that are put into consideration before a request to increase fees comes into play.
Okay. So what happens when the trust funds are seriously depleted? Does the trustee hold a meeting with the beneficiaries and wind up, or how does he go about it?
Yes, yes. So there is a process for that as well, which should also be in the trust. Yes, yes. So there are two scenarios where the law is still alive. When the settlor is still alive, you notify a person, let him or her know that the assets are going to deplete, and the objective is yes to become fulfilled. So you let them know that look, the asset is going to deplete, and so you would need them to either add more assets, increase the value of the to enable the trustee continue the work, or you ask the option to wind down the trust if they are unable to continue. The second scenario is where the settlor is already deceased and the trustee continues to carry on the function of the settlor. In such instance, if the asset is depleting, they notify the beneficiaries, let them know that the assets will no longer support it, and they wind down the trust. Most times, the trust did clearly that when you wind down the trust, you distribute whatever is left amongst the surviving beneficiaries. So that's how it works.
Oh, oh, I see. Thank you very much. So, who does the trustee get audited, and who calls for it? Or who can call for an audition of the accounts?
Yes, a trust has to be audited because it's part of the duty of accountability of the trustee, and it's usually called for by the settlor.
Oh,
The settlor or the beneficiaries where the settlor is deceased can ask for the trust to be audited, and there's trustee must provide everything that is required to do it.
okay, okay. Thank you
That's
so much.
externally, but internally, I
Okay,
just wanted to mention one of the internally as a business, a trustee has its own internal control mechanisms where they
okay.
do their checks internally to ensure that the trustee is doing the right things. But of course, an external audit is always a better option.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Um, I just want to ask this one more question, and that's around the understanding of why people choose trust or may want to choose trust. Sometimes you have minors in a family. Sometimes you have people who are challenged physically, mentally, or who are prone. You have beneficiary or a particular beneficiary that is prone to make wrong choices, and the settlor, the parent, or whoever it's looking to address a situation where the beneficiary does not get money in one fell swoop and squanders it, looking to stagger it. So how would a trust be brought into play in this kind of situation?
Okay, so like I said earlier, for a trust as an option for estate planning, for me, is more of an advantage because it states clearly how the trustee should follow, should take care of a beneficiary, and how access to the assets should be controlled. Now, as against a will, I'm not holding it for the pros and cons of a will or a trust.
Sure.
But where we focus on a trust, for example, a settlor, while giving the instruction in the letter of wishes, can state in detail at what point a beneficiary can take and can gain access to the trust, can state whether that access can be full access or based on milestones. Um, for example, where you have minors involved, the settlor can give an instruction to say, I want my child this trust to cater for the education of the child up to whatever level of education or until the child attains the age of 21 or 25, depending on where the child is going to, what school, whether the school here in Nigeria or outside the country. Then there's also the option of saying to them, okay, pay X amount to my beneficiary on a monthly, on a quarterly, on an annual basis for a period of 10 years, 20 years, you know. So it gives clear instructions. Where you have a minor, it's clear how you want it to be handled. Where you have a physically challenged beneficiary, there's also an option for health, telling the trustee to set up a health scheme for this beneficiary of mine and ensure there's upkeep for this beneficiary up to whatever age. So it all depends on the rules. The trust allows latitude in as
Okay.
much as that instruction is not illegal. It's not illegal. It does not. It's not contrary to law.
Okay.
The trustee should be able to carry it out based on the instruction. So and if there's going to be anything that would stop the trustee from carrying it out, it probably should be pointed out. If it's known at the time of drafting the trustee, then it will be pointed out to the settlor at that time. That is if they are aware of any issues at the point of drafting.
Thank you so much, Jola. It's been quite enlightening. I'm really thrilled to have the pleasure of your being with me here today. Thank you so much. But on a final note, do you have any more thoughts on this issue that you could leave us with?
Yes, I do. So I believe that a private trust as an alternative to estate planning is something that needs to create more awareness for. Um, a lot of people know what a will is. They understand um, the probate side of it. But a private trust, also helps one to achieve the same goals and even from one's lifetime to the point of demise. So you have your estate being administered by a corporate entity while you're alive, and it continues even after demise. A lot of awareness still needs to be done for the trust business. Also, in terms of legislation, we also need we need authorities such as corporate affairs commission to recognize a corporate trustee and the kind of authority they can exercise on behalf of the trust, because without saying that such trust needs to be incorporated under Part C.
Thank you once again. I really appreciate the perspectives you brought to the table. And I just want to tell everyone that unfortunately we'll have to wrap it up here. But please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and share, and share.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.